So I've had that 83-inch LG G2 TV hanging in the living room here for not quite a week so far. And I want to talk about my first impressions, some things that I found I really like, and talk about the installation experience, all that stuff in this first impressions review. So I talked in some prior videos about why I chose this TV for my next upgrade. It was an upgrade from a Sony X900H 85-inch. Take a look at the cards popping up, both for why I was focusing on upgrading the TV in the living room, and a couple of reasons as well why I chose the G2 over the C2. But suffice to say, for all of my requirements, a focus on gaming, wanting improvements in picture quality, and certain form factor and other elements of the capabilities and performance and such of this TV led me very deliberately to LG and to the G2 model specifically. Yeah, there's some other really great TVs out there this year. There's all the hype about the quantum dot OLEDs and such as well, but the quantum dots top out at 65 inches. That's not big enough for me. I was coming from an 85. I wanted something at least in the vicinity of that, so quantum dot was out, LCDs were out. Gaming was a massive priority, and so that led me here to this LG G2 83. I did want to also add that I procured the TV from Dan DiCarlo at AudioVision, local custom integrator dealer here in Southeast Michigan, personal friend of mine, and so you'll see him in the B-roll. He was over here helping me get it out of the box and get it hung up, as well as helping me get my Sony over to my friend that was taking it. Super props to Dan. If you're in this area and you're looking for a great source for home theater stuff, televisions, electronics, and all of that, let me know. I can give you a pass-through, a contact for Dan. He does all my Control 4 automation, and I've sourced a whole bunch of stuff for my home theater and other elements of our household and electronics and stuff from him. So 2 thumbs up, and you see Dan. See the other guy in the video with me? That's Dan himself. So I'm going to kind of skip the unboxing part of it. I think that's a little standard for televisions, and it's a little unwieldy to do a large unboxing of such a big thing to begin with. Suffice it to say, it's a TV, it's a display, right? It has HDMI inputs, it has some audio outputs, it has some USB ports, it's got an Ethernet jack, and it's got a power cord. And everything else related to this thing is how good does it work as a television and as a display. I will comment a little bit on the installation though, and I'll run a little bit of B-roll while I'm chatting. But in my living room here, we've got a 17 by 17-ish room. I'm sitting 14-ish, 13, 14 feet back from the screen. I have my custom designed inset, and I've already caught a little bit of flack, a couple of comments like, oh, you bought a G2 and you didn't use the flush mount design, you're doing it wrong. I'm like, well, no, not really. My install was very specific. Again, I have this custom bump out that was framed and designed into our room when we built the house. It's got about 7 inches of depth from the back of that cubby to the front part, and I really specifically wanted the G2 because it's 1 inch deep, and I have a variety of things mounted behind the television, and so that awesome thinness of the TV coupled with the depth of the cubby lets me keep stuff behind it while still having the TV pushed back properly into the cubby, but still giving clearance to have devices and stuff back there. I couldn't do that with the Sony. The Sony X900 was 3 inches thick, so it was always kind of like hanging out of the cubby. It didn't look really great. It didn't obscure the stuff behind it quite as well. And so I had no reason to use the flush mount that came with this TV model. I already had a mount on the wall that was holding the Sony. It was sized already for 80-inch televisions, 100+ pound televisions. So there's no reason at all to take that really superior, universal, articulating, very adjustable mount off the wall just to use the mount that came with the LG specifically. You don't have to use LG's mount. It's a regular like 400 by 400 VESA pattern, so you can use it with universal mounts of all different types and form factors and such. And as it turned out, I didn't even have to move the mount on the wall. The bars for the mount have adjustable slots, so you can kind of shift them up or down on the back of the TV. So the vertical placement of the mount where the Sony was able to stay in the wall in the same spot, and we just dropped the number of adjustments down on the hanging bars that are actually on the back of the set in order to kind of raise the TV up, because the mounting pattern, one thing to keep in mind with these sets is the mounting bolt pattern on the back of an LG does seem to ride a little low, which pushes the TV up a bit, but we had all the adjustments already built into the mount. So this mount is awesome. It's a strong mount, like one of their extra large mounts. I can pull the TV out, I can twist it side to side, I can do all of those manipulations, and it works excellently. I really had no reason to replace that or want to use the included LG mount. So yeah, installation was a snap. We popped the Sony off, took off the mounting brackets, brought the LG in here, put the brackets on the LG after kind of measuring, again, the right vertical gapping and such to use, lifted it right, hung it right up there, tightened everything down, and good to go. And so again, because of the thinness and because of the presentation of this TV, it's just so much cleaner in the installation than the Sony was. And so big plus, big positive for this set for those reasons. And again, really glad I bought the G2 in that regard. I'm currently sitting like floating maybe about 4 inches or so off of the wall. But again, that leaves it a couple inches inset into the opening, and it all just lines up excellently. I could mention as well, I guess, a couple other form factor things when it comes to getting this TV or installing it. One thing to keep in mind is the power cord is permanently attached. It's not detachable. So it has its fixed length and it has its fixed form factor and such, if that matters to you relative to where you're putting the TV and you need to plug it in. It worked fine for me, but Sony and some other brands have detachable power cords if that's important to you. And again, there's not much really else in the box. You get some instruction manuals, you get some IR flasher kind of receiver repeater stuff, and then of course you get the remote that lets you run with a mouse-based kind of interface for the LG Smart TV system and such. I don't find anything really remarkable about the remote. It's very plastic. It doesn't light up. I don't know, maybe for the G2, at least for the Gallery series, the higher end series, they could have made this a little bit better. I don't know, some brushed metal, some aluminum, or at least light the thing up, make it a little bit better in the G than the C, add a little more value for what you're paying for, but it works well enough. And in most cases, I'm not even going to use this thing anyway. I have a Control 4 automation system. I have my Neo remotes. I have the ability to select my inputs and stuff with my buttons on the wall. And the primary device that I'll be using to watch content in this room anyway is an Apple TV. So quite honestly, I other than just for the purposes of exploration and experimentation, I probably won't even touch the LG apps or smart features and so on. We're an Apple household, and I'm very much an Apple TV fan. Other than settings and configuration and stuff like that, or pulling up the game bar or the many press on the green button to get some of the technical details about the picture and the signal, that's about the extent that I would use this remote for anyway. And that's it, nothing else in the box other than a whole lot of styrofoam. So let's talk about a few things with regards to the set that I found I really like. And again, not to restate, but number one certainly is the form factor. I'm very, very happy that I bought the G over the C. The form factor benefits worked for me. The 1-inch thickness, the mounting, the presentation, all of that stuff on the TV is just aces. So that gave me the benefits that I wanted to get out of it. Everything else aside, G versus C, getting a thinner model and having it be the better performing one nonetheless as well, better spec anyway, is enough for me to spend some amount of money for those benefits regardless. Kind of building off of that on a number two, I'm very pleased for the way that kind of LG did its cable management. Yeah, they give you a fixed power cord that you can't detach, but they actually give you channels kind of through which to run the power cord if you want to get it kind of over to what would be that left side of the television where the other connections are. So there's a channel to run it through, and there's clips in that channel that you can clip the power cord into. That's how I have it structured, and that's really great. And then down below where all of the ports are, so all of the ports are on that side of the television, they're facing out that way, but down below them there's kind of these two little channels that clip open, and they have like 4 or 5 little sections in each of them. And so you can run your cables kind of up through them or down through them, and then clip these things closed and hold those cables up against the back of the TV. And for a couple of the cables that I have routed back there, some of the HDMI cables, the Ethernet cable and such, it's really great because it lets me kind of tie down some of the excess cable basically to the back of the TV and then come out. So I haven't, the Sony that I had before and such didn't have built-in cable management to that level. So I think it's just a real useful and kind of thoughtful thing to have back there. I might have liked the connectors to be a little more in the TV, because if you have thick cable that doesn't bend real easily, I could see it coming out past the edge of the TV and being visible. So a little more clearance and stuff might be there, or might need to be there. But for the cables that I use, the infinite HDMI cables and the Ethernet cables and stuff that I had, everything was pliable enough that I do kind of, I have it hidden behind there quite well and pushed back into the cubby. Looking at it from the side, you really don't see any of the cables and such. So I like clean installs. I like really integrated things. And again, the form factor and some of the features of this TV are just really, really nice from that perspective. Another feature that I was very, very pleasantly surprised to find on the TV that lacked on the Sony was how the TV kind of presents its EDIT information for HDMI audio and takes inputs and passes them through. And so I mentioned that I use an Apple TV as my primary device for viewing. A lot of content that we watch on the Apple TV is available in Atmos, even though I don't have an Atmos system. The thing about Apple TV itself and iTunes and the apps is that the Atmos soundtrack is the better soundtrack, generally speaking. So if your sound system supports it and the Apple TV will output Atmos, you're getting higher fidelity audio than if you had just a 2-channel system and the Apple TV only recognized 2 channels and it was outputting just the 2-channel information in terms of how it streams and what stream it kind of locks onto. So with my Sony, Apple TV into the Sony and then optical down to my Anthem STR and the audio processing for the room, where here again I only have a 2.2 channel audio system. The Apple TV was registering it as a 2-channel system and it wouldn't output the Atmos signal. Well, with this television, in the audio settings for the ports and controlling what's coming in and what's being sent along, you can actually elect for PCM input or you can elect for bitstream input. And so thankfully, very, very nicely, the Apple TV going in to the G2 registers, hey, I can give you Atmos, and then the TV can take the Atmos signal and kind of decode it into 2-channel PCM, send that over the optical link without any degradation, any loss in quality. And so I'm getting the higher value, higher quality, higher fidelity audio signal all the way through from my Apple TV to my ears through these speakers, through the optical connection, through the Anthem, because of those settings. So just really smart settings, and I think that's amongst all the stuff that LG just seems to do a lot of things really well. And if that was done very deliberately, the settings are in the menus, and I really appreciate that being there. Because otherwise I was looking for ways to work around how can I set up my system for the Apple TV to be able to pick up and understand that it can output those Atmos streams and do so, but the TV just made everything work perfectly. And so for my game systems and the other stuff that I have plugged in, I just configure those for 2-channel output. There's no real reason to have those send Atmos. But again, in the Apple world and across all the apps like Netflix, Disney Plus, and so on, if you have them send the Dolby Atmos signal, you're getting the higher bit rate, basically the better quality audio, even if you still are having it present into the room with 2 channels. So very, very happy with that. I wasn't expecting that, but to find the ability to do that in the menus and stuff is just aces for me. So the other thing that I'll comment on is with regards to, I bought this TV very specifically. I chose the LG brand and I chose this model of television specifically because of its cutting edge gaming features. LG has been at the forefront of kind of supporting everything in the gaming space and making it work properly. That was a big problem I had with the Sony that I had previously. It did a bunch of stuff, but it didn't do it all the way, or didn't do it right, or didn't do it completely. It didn't do it well. And so it's really great to be able to have my PC, my 3090 Ti GPU gaming computer, plugged in to this television and see G-Sync light up, right? The best, essentially, VRR system that I could use with that video card. I can realize it on this TV. Having the Xbox plugged in there, the Xbox Series X, well, AMD FreeSync, it works. It's lit up. The icons are turned on. It's not just HDMI VRR. You're taking advantage of more powerful gaming opportunity. The fact that all of the ports are full 48 gigabit HDMI 2.1, all four of them, all four of them is just awesome. That's what I wanted. Right now I've got that gaming PC, I've got a PlayStation 5, I've got an Xbox Series X, all this different stuff that I'm plugging in, and everything can work with all of its VRR features, 120 hertz. And I have to say that like gaming with full resolution, G-Sync, 115, 120 FPS off the PC, it's just insane. It's so good. It runs great, it looks great, so smooth, so awesome, so responsive, massively low input lag, all that stuff. LG delivers on the gaming features. That's what I was hoping to accomplish or arrive at with this display, and it's ticking all the boxes, and everything I've tried, out of the box has just worked. It just absolutely worked. And then kind of the fifth point of feedback, of course, you buy a television, it's all about the display quality. I never had an OLED before. I've always had LCD TVs and displays and such, and then the projector, of course, for the theater. Man, OLED, it's very, very nice. So seeing OLED in the stores over the years, but seeing it in my house, in my room, in the evening, with lights dim, lights dark, set up in the proper picture modes and all of that sort of stuff, not store display torch modes and whatnot. I have to honestly say, I have never seen such a great picture. The black level, the contrast, all of that stuff, clarity. There's just a depth and a presence to the way this thing looks that is a order of magnitude, a step beyond anything that I saw with my prior Sony or any other display that I've had. I would venture to say as well that I haven't really experienced what HDR is all about until I've seen it on this display. The brightness of like specular highlights and small window things that are supposed to be bright are just so impactfully resident and such that it's just HDR on a whole nother level when you can have the bright elements with such the total black dark elements on the screen at the same time, and without LCD local dimming and all that stuff kind of holding some of that performance and such back. It's insane. Everything I've watched I've been impressed with in terms of the way it looks, from stuff that we've watched on the Apple TV, even low bitrate YouTube TV and such. Looks better, it looks richer, it looks deeper in a way better than with the Sony before it. And a little bit of Switch gaming that I've tried so far looks to me just better. PlayStation 5 just looks better. And particularly the Xbox Series X running in HDR and running in Dolby Vision HDR, which I think might actually have a couple of bugs and such right now. But I played a lot of Red Dead Redemption 2 in HDR on my Sony display and found that it always looked drab. It looked plain. It didn't look really good. And I fired up Red Dead Redemption 2 on this Dolby Vision HDR, and I was floored. It looked so much closer actually to the quality of the PC version relative to what I had saw with the Series X connected to the Sony before, like night and day difference. And so I was impressed with it. It makes console gaming look better than console gaming has normally looked, or that I've ever experienced it looking before. It's just nuts. And then when you actually go for the PC on there and you're looking at full 4K and still running, still HDR and all of that sort of stuff, I'm absolutely floored. I have never seen in my spaces look so good, so complete, so black, so bright, so colorful, so rich, so detailed, all of that stuff. I'm absolutely amazed by the quality of this. And I still need to dial a few things in, so it's going to be a learning process in terms of understanding some of the modes and making sure that I have everything right. In terms of what I understand TV settings to be for different sources, and doing a bunch of research prior to getting it about what are the quote-unquote best modes. And there's a lot of conjecture about that with your game consoles. Do you put them in PC mode, or you put them in console mode, and does that give you 444? And well, the consoles don't really output 444. all that stuff. I think I've got everything set pretty well, but I am looking forward to kind of tinkering between different modes and some different settings and find out in some cases what exactly I might like or prefer in some setting versus another. But I think all of that is really nuance and minor variances at best. And then of course, building on the idea of the gaming features and the visual fidelity and stuff, having the game optimizer and being able to pull up the game bar, being able to hit the green button on the remote like 7 or 8 times and have the screen pop up that shows you deliberately what's your color mode, what's your bit depth, what HDR are you in, what's your frame rate, hertz, is your VRR on. All of that stuff was really a pain with the Sony because it just didn't give you that information. You didn't really know. It would only tell you, the Sony would only tell you really basic information, resolution, HDR mode, stuff like that. And so as a tech enthusiast, tweaker kind of person, I like to really see the details about what's happening, make sure I've got the right mode set, make sure I've got the right signals coming in. And so being able to tinker with that stuff, call that stuff up, it's all awesome. And again, another reason why I wanted this television, and it's delivering in that respect for sure. So what's next, or what are maybe some areas for improvement? So I have noticed that while I have the TV connected on my Control 4 system, sometimes it feels like it's a little slow to respond, like input changes and stuff like that. I don't know if that's just an LG thing or if there's some way to maybe optimize that in the automation setup. So I want to try to figure that out, see if there's a way to optimize those settings a little bit. It's not really a problem. The TV turns on, it turns off, it's responsive, it does all the things it needs to do, but I'd like to see a little bit better, maybe better of a response there. Of course, again, I need to spend the time with all the different picture settings. One of the things that I've noticed that there is a difference from the Sony. Sony's generally applauded for its motion handling and such. And to me, I've noticed some instances of judder watching like 24 hertz content at times. If things are panning or moving, they just don't seem to me to move as cleanly as they did on the Sony, and it takes me out of the content a little bit. I would have still expected this television to be very smooth with native refresh 24 hertz, 23.9 hertz content and stuff, but I wonder if maybe in this case I want to turn on some of the true motion settings or some level of that and kind of have the TV process that stuff a little smoother. I don't tend to really notice it in gaming, but I've done most of my gaming on the PC at 120 or 115 effective FPS, so it's watching the video content where I've noticed it. So maybe I just need a little bit of de-judder or one of the preset like true motion settings enabled and smooth a little bit of that out. It's not bad, but coming from the Sony, it is something that I've noticed, and it's about the only element of picture quality that I would say isn't as good or took a step backward coming from the Sony. Everything else just blows that Sony just totally out the window. So I'll be doing a whole lot more with this TV on the channel after I use it for a few more weeks. I'll give it some more updated thoughts. I want to go over and break down how I'm using the PC, particularly like FPS and VRR settings, HDR settings, and all of that for Windows. I want to put up some content with some thoughts on using the PlayStation, using the Xbox, using the Switch, and all of those sorts of things. Maybe I'll get into the WebOS and talk a little bit about that as well. But so far, yeah, I'm just totally enamored with this thing. It is a step up in quality and performance and picture presentation and features and all of that. Order of magnitude beyond the Sony. Exactly what I was hoping to achieve with buying it. Yeah, 2 thumbs up from me completely so far. I did wish, I guess, they made it in an 85. It's a shame it's an 83. That way it could compete size for size. Instead of 77 and 83, I wish that they could have done 75 and 85 so that it was more of a direct match. It was a bit of a shame losing the 2 inches. Close enough that I didn't really notice that. I wouldn't want it to have gone down to the 77, even though the 83 is a whole lot more than the 77. But I've already measured, and I do know that my little cubby here seems to be perfectly sized for a 97. There could be a 97-inch OLED popped right into that outlet. But we'll see what comes from LG and in the TV years ahead. And I'd hope with the channel and everything going forward that I'm able to more or less kind of upgrade this TV every year, stick to the current model, and be able to talk to the current model and all of that. So I believe actually as I was recording this video, the TV shut off on me in the background and came back up. It said software update applied, so there's already new firmware being rolled out. Who knows what was fixed or maybe added in there. I'm very excited to see what the LG ownership experience is, how the TV holds up, what kind of updates and continual improvements and all that sort of thing it gets. I haven't noticed anything wrong with it, panel-wise, pixel-wise. Everything looks good to me, so from a quality perspective, I hope I got a good one. I'll continue to be paying attention to that in the weeks ahead as well. So please ask whatever questions you have in the comments. What can I tell you about the TV that you might want to know if you're thinking about buying one, you're considering this model or this brand or whatever it might be. Any more on my thoughts of coming from LCD or first time OLED experience, settings, how I'm using it, any of that stuff, ask away in the comments, as well as what additional content would you like to see me make about it. If you have questions and such that you want to see me answer, I can make dedicated videos about those and give my answers and give my feedback and all of that. So check out the last couple of videos that led me to decide to buying this, leading up to this, and look again for a whole bunch of extra stuff, more stuff coming as I continue to use it and get familiar with it. 2 thumbs up, go buy one. LG G2, awesome television. Thanks so much.